Hello, everyone. Hannover Messe 2023 is a wrap, and we are here to give you our 10 takeaways from the fair. With me today is Satyajit Sinha. He's a principal analyst and leads our our connectivity and hardware team. And Fernando Brugge, he's a senior analyst on our industrial team. And we were actually a lot more people at the fair, as you can see here in this picture, because it's such a big and important fair. But today, we're just three sharing our top 10 takeaways with you as we actually aligned with the team. So quickly about Hannover Messe, 130,000 people attended this year, much more than last year, still a lot less than before the pandemic, as we could see with CES and MWC, which are two other very big events in the world this year. As you can see on the right, the president of Indonesia was there. The German chancellor is always there. They try out some of the technologies. It's also a bit of a political and a showcase event, and it's good. We enjoy it a lot, and you can see here some of the pictures, some of the observations. For those of you who have never attended, just to give you, you can have some really good in-depth discussions with people. You can attend some of the presentations. You can see some good showcases. Robots. There is a lot to be, and actually much more than even a team of 15 or 16 people as we were can. Which is why we're trying to give you a summary of what we thought from our eyes was actually quite interesting. And so I will start 10 takeaways. For me, one of the biggest ones, and that's why I'm highlighting it first takeaway, was that decoupling of hardware and software is gaining momentum. We as IoT Analytics have talked about this in the industrial space for 4 or 5 years now. And I was pleasantly surprised that Siemens announced their new virtual PLC at the conference. It means that you can now have a software instance as a PLC running on any kind of hardware. So technically, you can run it on a Siemens competitor type of industrial PC. You may also do it with a neutral other vendor like Advantech or somebody else. There's a few prerequisites. It needs to run some kind of VMware certified or some kind of industrial Linux. But generally speaking, the idea of having really of Siemens in the future just selling that piece of software and not their own industrial piece PLC anymore is quite revolutionary. We've seen this from a few other vendors before. But as the market leader is now introducing that, it's exciting. And they had Audi at the show, who as a first customer showed that they're going to implement this. They have a 15-people team just working on this, making sure this gets implemented in Audi factories in 2 years' time. We talk about it more in our report. I forgot to mention that we have a 109-page report that we wrote as a team. And if you're interested, reach out. We have a lot more details in there. More and more IT technologies are coming to OT. We talked about that a lot in the past. Last time after the SPS event, and we wrote an entire report and blog on the IT-OT conversions. But there's a lot of IT stuff happening, from low-code tools to all kinds of different paradigms, software as a service, and so on. We saw quite a few of these newer companies. Like here is an example of a company called Crosser, where that allow you to take IT-centric tools, in this case, their so-called Flow Studio, that allows you to drag and drop essentially different data sources and different data pipes, and allows you to make sense of where the data flows, how it flows, and so on, in a way that is very easy to use even for the not so technical person. So we saw quite a few of these. We highlight a few more in the report and also in the blog. One of the interesting things that we saw that this interoperability issue that has been there for years is shifting a bit from the asset view to the data view. And so what I mean with that is we're not talking anymore about, hey, how do I connect to this asset? What protocol do I use? It's more about, how do I make sure the data is actually immediately usable? How can I make that more interoperable from a data point of view? And there's various aspects to this, from standardization to vendor things. So just highlighting one element here of many that we highlighted in the report, as AWS introduced their data fabric architecture, which they propose to companies to use if they use AWS Cloud to get the data out of their asset and make sense of it. As you can see, they partnered in this case with two companies, Element Unify and HighByte. We talked to, for example, HighByte. They have a contextualization tool that they use. And you see AWS focusing a lot more on partners. We counted 35 partners at the AWS booth that you could all talk to, that all had their own solutions. And it's clear that AWS is kind of not doing this themselves, clearly highlighting and spotlighting even some of their smaller partners. I mean, these are startups that we're talking about here. So quite interesting. The other hyperscalers, by the way, also had somewhat similar announcements, although this one might have been the biggest one out of those. Industrial metaverse is starting to take shape. I personally am a big critic of the industrial metaverse. I think it's just another marketing term for something that we've had all along. And I didn't expect anything, but then I walked across this fair and was like, wow, industrial metaverse, it's almost every second booth had that somewhere. Then we started talking to people and we realized they all mean something else. Nobody has a clear definition of what it means. Well, they have some clear definitions, but they're not aligned. Let's put it that way. So here's the Microsoft version. We could have also shown the Siemens version or the Schneider Electric version or other versions. Obviously with the HoloLens, in this case, they had this car at the fair, Ego. Ego uses this in production to train their workers. So on HoloLens, they can see what they should be doing. It's connected to their Dynamics 365 suite. There's a Microsoft Copilot generative AI tool as part of this that interacts with the person as they do their steps. So quite a visionary setup, I would say, or visionary, an advanced setup. Innovative, that's the word I was looking for. Handing it over to Satya for his takeaways.
Thanks, Knut. Yeah, one of my key takeaways for the fair is hardware platforms are consolidating, and this consolidation is happening at the core of the IPCs and the gateways. As Knut already mentioned, the virtual PLCs are coming, can run on third-party IPCs as well. On the other hand, the Cortigo showed that IO module master can be embedded at the gateway level, so it can communicate directly to the sensors through IO link wireless. On the other hand, we have the AI capabilities embedded at the gateway as well to enhance the capabilities of the gateway and then the IPCs. So yeah, and the second takeaway from the event was for me is the wireless connectivity on the shop floor is becoming reality. Year after year, we are seeing a lot of wireless connectivity adoption in the industrial space. We have seen the example from Vika. It's a sensor instrumental player who embedded LoRaWAN sensors at their instrument at the sensor levels. And also we have seen the IO wireless adoptions at the sensors and the IO module master or router level as well. And on the latest edition, we have seen the private 5G has moved from the pilot phase to the commercial phase. We have seen a lot of case studies from these players like Nokia and Ericsson talking about in detail and how they are implementing the private 5G implementation in the shop floor. On the third, we see sustainability is being extensively being promoted by almost all of the companies where we've seen talk to them. One of the interesting things that Siemens showed is the sustainability is not just at the afterthought of the production. It's basically the have to think from a design perspective. They showcased example of the battery production in which they created the design of these battery production at a modular level so that once they can track the life cycle of that battery as well as and they can replace it, renew it once it depleted. So the design, it makes it so much comfortable to push into a renewable cycle. I think that is one of the key important from a sustainability perspective, to have a sustainability from a design perspective, not just from the after production perspective. And hand over to Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. So yes, one of the another key highlights that or trends that we observed here at Hannover Messe was that modularity is becoming the top theme for future manufacturing. And this kind of makes sense as manufacturers started to realize that after the pandemic and the corresponding or the consequent supply chain shock, they started to learn that they need to become more adaptive. So what we see is that many vendors put a focus on making productions more modular and more interchangeable. So in this case, we have the example of a Smart Factory KL that they showcase a production demo here with many production models that they are interchangeable, and they allow the assemble and manufacturing, in this case, of a model truck and prepare it for the handout to the customer. So the next highlight or trend that we observed was that generative AI is being implemented in manufacturing. So it's finally reaching the shop floor after all the buzzing that has been around the topic. So in the fair, we observed an example from Beckhoff in which they show how they're integrated ChatGPT into their TwinCAD software, basically to allow users to create a control logic code. So basically what they're doing is taking the result or the output that ChatGPT gives, and they are optimize it to make it adequate for the TwinCAD content. And the last key takeaway that we observed is that the data operations are maturing. So basically, as Riley Knut mentioned before, of the importance of interoperability in data management, the other side of this topic is making data more manageable on a day-to-day. So we observed that many vendors focus on this idea of optimizing data, cleaning and optimizing the data in a fast and easy fashion in order to make sense of this amount of data. So in this case, we have the example of Rockwell, and they highlighted the partnership that they have with Cognite, and they're using a Cognite Data Fusion platform to make sense of their operational and engineering data within the Rockwell ecosystem. So this is pretty much it for my side, and back to Knut.
Thank you very much, guys. Running through it very quickly. I hope you're taking some value from it. We have obviously put a lot more into our report, try to assemble everything for our clients so that every interesting examples, and there are many more than we couldn't even highlight here. Hannover Fair is always that one big industrial fair that enlightens us and gives us content for a long time, because it's just so many things that we can see there. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to talk to you, be in touch with you whenever it makes sense, and have a good day.